Come on in. If you're new or you're visiting, my name is Matt and I get the joy of being the priest in this beautiful community called Unlimited. And Unlimited, we want to do two things. We want to be a multi-generational family that sees itself going all out for our rising generations, our youth, our students, basically sub-24s. And the reason being, and you'll hear me say this every week, and if you're a regular, you'll be bored of it, is that 86% of people in the church join before the age of 25. 86%. And we want to go all out for those guys, see them come alive and flourish as they find out who Jesus really is. And secondly, we want to be the people who see miracles everywhere. We want to be a hub in the middle of the city. People are desperate for a miracle and they wander in and say, hey, I don't necessarily believe in your God, but I've heard about him and could you pray for me because I think I need a miracle. And so that's who we are. We're a beautiful multi-generational family going all out for the unreached youth students in our city and seeing miracles everywhere. Full disclosure, today I'm talking about money. And if you're new or you're visiting or you're kind of new to this community, I'm sure you're like, oh, I knew it. First Sunday, you're waiting for it, and they're going to talk about money. And we talk about money twice a year, every 6 months. I try and be really honest and real and transparent about how it's going financially. I think it's fair that people give really generously, and I want them to see the impact of their giving. And but I'm sure if you're new to this space, you're thinking like, oh, I was just waiting for a time they're going to try and steal my money off of me. And so I apologize if this is your first Sunday in this space. But I think we're quite passionate about who we are and our vision and our values and where we're going as a church and as a family. And so rather than doing, a lot of churches do like a big kind of vision series twice a year, which you forget 6 months later. But rather than doing that, I dive into our vision like about once a month. So every month during term time, my kind of goal is to dive into some of our vision and values. And part of that is that we get to be a generous community. There's like real joy in us being generous with some of the things that we kind of hold most dear: time, effort, energy, finances. And I want to talk about that today and unpack that a little bit. I want to reference one of my favourite celebrities, a guy called Stephen Bartlett. And you might have seen Stephen on Dragon's Den. You might listen to his podcast. If you don't listen to Diary of a CEO, can I just recommend that podcast? Listen to you. It is amazing. And the one with Boris last week was particularly interesting. And he basically interviews and pulls apart some of the biggest CEOs and world leaders and asks them who they are and why they've made the decisions they have and dives into it. And he had a friend who basically started an energy drink company. And in his book, The Diary of a CEO, law number 14, business law number 14, he says, friction can create value. Friction can create value. What he says is, he says that friend who made an energy drink company, he was advised to make it expensive, to make the packaging small, and to make the drink taste disgusting. You kind of think like if you're trying to be a competitor of something like Fanta or trying to be a competitor of Coke, why would you make a drink smaller than them, more expensive than them, and more disgusting? Well, it's because there was a psychological effect that they found where when it tastes like medicine and sort of resembled a medicine, bottle, and when it was expensive, people assumed it was working and there was a placebo effect. And I think often when it comes to money, people are expecting me to say something similar, like take the hit and you'll feel a spiritual gain. Like, drink the bottle and feel it burn and you'll know God's blessing upon you. Like, I think, people are expecting me to say something that they know is going to end in a financial crash. And actually, I want to approach money slightly differently to perhaps we have done in the past and how the church has done perhaps in the past. And I want to approach it a bit more relationally, a bit like Jesus did. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? When we talk about money, it's a taboo today. But for Jesus, it's the fourth most recorded thing that he talks about in the Gospels. The fourth most, it's amazing, isn't it? First thing he talked about most of all was kingdom of God. Secondly, it was the Father. Thirdly, it was Satan. And then it was money. Money. And he didn't seem to approach it like his peers did. It's interesting. Like Jesus is in the temple and he's watching people give. It's a fascinating scene. He's watching people give. And he sees this guy, this big, wealthy kind of, I guess, equivalent to a banker in our world, give this huge donation. And he's like, no, they're stingy. They're tight. Like, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, he sees this tiny little widow who gets out a couple of coins and drops them into the pot. And he says, she is more generous than everybody else combined. It's just interesting, isn't it, what Jesus considers to be faithful and unfaithful when it comes to money. Jesus doesn't need your money, but he wants your money. Why? Because I think that our money is so intertwined with our hearts. Jesus cares about our money, not because he wants it, but because he wants to do something with it that's so much more beautiful than what we see that happens in our banks. For Jesus, it was never about money. It's all about the heart. There's a beautiful little story where they're served a tax bill. HMRC comes knocking and says, hey, you need to pay up some money. And they don't have any money. Anyone watch Outer Banks? No, just me. They've sold the last gold that they've got. They are like the guys on Outer Banks. They've sold the last. They've got nothing to give. And they're looking at each other like, where are we going to get this money from? And so Jesus says to Peter, he says, hey, go fishing. So he goes fishing, and Jesus, Peter's out there in the lake. He reels in the fish, and what's in the fish's mouth? The exact coin that they need to pay their tax bill. Fascinating. Jesus doesn't need our money. He can manifest money, but he wants our money. Why? Because it reveals what we love, what we count as important, what we really value, what we think is the most important things in our lives. The app on your phone, which is your banking app, will tell you what you value in life. Where you spend your money will show you what you care about. And Jesus wants your heart. He wants to be the thing that you care about. What he wants most is what? Your heart, your soul, your eternal well-being. Jesus, I don't think his goal is to make you broke and sad. His game plan is to make you live a little bit more fully, to have life more abundantly, to equip you to invest not just into the now, but into the eternal. Jesus, I say again, his game plan is not to make you broke and sad, but to live more alive. And so can we look at his words? Can we turn to Matthew chapter 6? If you've got a phone, just Google it, or get your Bible app out, or it will come up on the screen behind us. But I'd love you to have it open so you can chat about it a little bit later. This is Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 24. Don't store up for yourself treasure on earth where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal it. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure will be, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, your heart will be there also. No one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. See, I'm aware that there are so many people in our beautiful community, whether they're in this space or not in this space today, that give generously. Not necessarily out of duty, but out of a love. They want their hearts to be invested into this space. They want to love God a little bit more, and they invest because they want their heart to be invested into the kingdom. Your wallet and your heart will always be intertwined. But equally, I want to ask the question today, what are you investing in? What do you want a return to be on your investment? Every investment, we've got to ask, what's the return, right? We bought a car recently. It was our inheritance. We spent the inheritance, and someone said, hey, that's a dumb use of your inheritance because it's going to, devalue over time. And I said, yeah, you're probably quite right. But we needed a car. Or the Bitcoin that I bought in the 2019 hike has not paid off, right? What are we investing in? What are we investing in? There are other things that we have invested in that have really paid off. But I think we've got to ask, what return do we want on our investment? What are we investing in? It's interesting. Jesus continues this story, this little sermon. 24. No one can serve both two masters. They either hate one and love the other. You can't be devoted to one and you'll be despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. Let's keep reading. Therefore, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat, you'll drink, or about the body, what you'll wear. Is not life more than food, and food more than clothes? As well, more than the body, and the body more than clothes. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and that your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they? Can any of you add a single hour to your life by worrying? Fascinating, isn't it? This is one monologue for Jesus. This is not a separate sermon a couple of months later. This is one thing. it seems interesting to me that Jesus calls out the place that we find our security in and says, does this really deliver? And then he looks around, see Jesus on the side of the hill. He's like, hey, look at those beautiful birds. Aren't you more valuable? And doesn't your Father love you more than those? Like the place that we find so much security or insecurity, identity or worth, or worrying or striving, Jesus calls out and says, don't put your money in something that will fluctuate depending on who's in charge of the government and the state of affairs and where your nation is and what's happening globally in wars and whether you go into lockdown and can't afford to put gas in your car. Jesus is calling out something here which is beautiful. Put your trust in a treasure that can be never taken from you and that carries you into eternal life. You cannot serve both God and money. Cannot serve both God and money. This term money in Aramaic, when a treasure that a person puts their trust in, sounds a bit like money today, doesn't it? A treasure that people put their trust in. Yeah, I think that we've all believed the lie that to be secure, to be happy, to be in control, we need to be financially independent in the world. We need to have a little bit of, trust in what we can bring to the kind of equation. But I suppose it's just such an anti-Jesus approach to life. Jesus says, again, you can't serve two masters. You can either serve money or God. You can't serve them both. And I think it's because money is a treasure that, it's not that it will never satisfy, but it's a false treasure that we put our trust in. In my hand right now, I've got a $10 trillion note. I was hoping Charlotte would be here from Zim. She's out with the kids. $10 trillion. Any idea how much this is worth? $10 trillion. How much is this worth? 40p. 40p. Like, we cannot trust in stuff that will fluctuate, that will disintegrate, that doesn't mean anything really in the course of eternity. The problem with money is that it lies. It is a false promise. Robert Madu, my favorite preacher, he said this: if you don't know that money has the power to deceive you, you are already deceived. God says there are no two options. You'll either serve one or the other. Ultimately, I think Jesus says you can't serve two masters because money blinds us to our primary identity. Being faithful people serving a faithful goal. And it's not that Jesus is anti-money. I'm going to come back onto that in the second half of this talk. I don't think Jesus is anti-money or anti-wealth at all. But I think our pursuit of money blinds us to where we put our trust, to what we put our identity in. Why? Because society is fine-tuned to see this and see success. To see this and see someone who is resourceful. To see this and to see someone who's lived a life that is well lived. To see this and see someone who's worked hard. To see this and to see someone who is secure. Whereas I just don't think they are the things. This is not the way that Jesus measures how secure we are, or how successful we are, or how faithful we are, or how hard that we have worked. I think the ultimate question that I want to ask today is, what Jesus is asking is, will we be faithful with what we've got? Will we be faithful with our money? Or will we put our trust in something that ultimately is an earthly thing that we won't carry into heaven with us? And so I want to ask this question in the breakout groups. At Unlimited, we try and break out in the middle of our talk. I don't want monologue. I want dialogue. We learn by discussing and talking and conversing, and we learn by genuinely mulling it over together. And I want to give you an opportunity to say, no, Matt is totally wrong. And so, can you ask these questions together? What does it look like for you to follow Jesus and be faithful with your money? What does it look like for you to follow Jesus and be faithful with your money? Let's break out into little groups and come back in about 5 minutes' time. Let's pick up money conversation again. I think the problem with money is that, as I said before, I think it blinds us to our primary identity. What are we called to do on earth? I think we're called to be faithful people, faithful to God, faithful serving, faithful kind of people, people being faithful, serving a faithful God. Jesus, as I said, is not anti-wealth. So I want to put it out there. Jesus is not anti-rich people. Jesus is not anti-people, having a decent inheritance. He's not anti us going to earn a good living. Jesus doesn't say don't push for the pay rise. I think what he does say is it's hard to be rich and be a follower of Jesus, because that's where we put our identity as society. He doesn't say, don't, increase your rates. Please do increase your rates this year. He doesn't say, don't go back to your employer and say, they're on this, I'm on this. I want to earn more than her or him. Please do go back to your employer and say that. But he says, don't put your treasure in money. Don't equate how much you're worth as to how much of this you got in your bank. Don't equate how much or how little you think of someone else because of how much or how little there is in their bank. Don't see how much you've got to offer the world as to what you can give financially. Go back to that quote. We can't serve both God and money. Why? Because money blinds us. It deceives us. It corrupts our thinking. See, what we all want is security, right? Deep down, that's what we all want. We want to be secure. But we put our security in money. And when we do that, it enables us from saying to God, I trust you, I love you, I am for you, I want to be faithful with everything. I want you to be the rock upon which I stand, to saying how much of this can I get and how much of this can I store in order that I can be secure in the years to come and my kids can be secure in the years to come. It's interesting, isn't it? I love that we get students in this space. Some of the most secure students that I meet are not the rich ones, but the poor ones whose parents were missionaries and their grandparents were missionaries and their grandparents were missionaries. Think back to a student that we had, not here, but in Bournemouth, whose grandparents were both in China. They're living literally grain of rice to grain of rice. I've never met a more secure student. Why? Because they've got praying parents that brought them up saying, don't trust this, trust in the Lord. Don't trust that, what you have in your pocket will provide for what's going to come. But they would sit and they would wait on the Lord. I think they are the most secure people that we find. I'll be honest, when it comes to money, being faithful is painful, isn't it? Being faithful is not easy. Being personal with Laura and I, the first thing that comes out of our bank account when I get paid is our tithe. We try and give 10% back to God. And I'll be honest, it's really painful. We try our best to be as faithful as we possibly can do. We probably give more than we can afford to give, but we do it because we want to put our theology into practice. We want to say, Jesus, you are the most important thing, and I want to show you that with the biggest asset, the biggest resource that we have. And I think ultimately when we do that, we live better on 90%, knowing that we've said to God, I want to be faithful with this, than living on 100%, living independently from him. I want to say that again. I really believe that living with 90%, saying, God, I trust you with this. I trust you know what you're doing. I trust that you're going to be my rock. Living in that 90% will go further and will be more beautiful lived than living independently from God with 100%. And I just can't think of a more powerful way to live. I had a friend who had a business, and he said, I'm going to try and give 10% of my staff team's time away because I want to tithe that back. The most important thing, he said, I've got money in the bank. The most important thing I've got is my team's time. I want to try and give some of that back to God. And it wasn't a Christian team, and it looked like serving out in the community, but it was a really beautiful thing. In a world that dictates who you are by what you can afford, and how you can dress, and what you can wear on your wrist, or what bag you carry, or what car you carry, or what colour your card is when you go to pay. Do I what? Card. Oh, sorry. I am super strong. I can carry a car. I'm like one of those amazing mums when the kids get caught onto the car. Have you seen it? The adrenaline rush. To turn to God, and when we, rather than doing that, to turn to God and to say to God, I trust you. I trust that you can give me a life more than I could ever deserve or earn. I trust you more than anything else. And so what I want to ask today is what happens when we give? What happens when we give? Because I think there's two things that happen. There's something that happens here behind the scenes, and I'm going to dig into our financials in just a moment. But there's something that happens on the inside. And whether you give to us or to another beautiful church in the city, or whether you give to a charity or what it may be, or you decide I want to give to a mission field out somewhere else. Regardless of where you give, I think there is something that happens when we say, Jesus, I want you to to be the thing that I put my trust in. Like, I want to trust you more than I trust myself. I want to trust you more than, perhaps I trust what's in my bank. There is something that happens on the inside. And I don't think you can pay your way into heaven. I don't believe in the whole thing. I don't believe in a prosperity gospel, which is the more you give to God, the more you are blessed. I do not believe that. I've been in lobbies of churches where they've had calculators where you can calculate your blessing. I think that is an absolute lie from the devil. But I do believe that there is something that happens. There is a closeness that happens with God. And yes, you may be poorer. And yes, it may have a negative effect on your bank balance. But there is something that happens when we say to God, I want to trust you. I want to trust you in a way that feels uncomfortable, perhaps, with the greatest thing that I have in my life right now and the greatest thing that, I'm holding on to right now. And so I do think there is a spiritual shift that happens internally. But then when it comes to us, if you'll remember here, if you've been here, I don't know, more than a term, maybe, a couple, more than a term, I would love you to consider giving to Unlimited. And, I said at the beginning that I want to get real with you about what happens when people give in this space. We are a family. I really believe that part of a family value is that we want to be generous with what we've got and we want to give generously. And so if you just scan that QR code or you go to Unlimited Church /giving stats, these slides will come up. I'd actually really love you to do that so you've got them when you go home. And you'll see the scripts that we've been talking about today, and you'll see some of these slides that will come up. And so I want to be real with you I want to be completely transparent. I'll do this, again, I'm going to do this in March again next year, so you'll see it again in March, about the real kind of income expenditure, what we're forecasting for this year. So our real income for this year is, so far, year to date, £21,000 in. What we've spent is, or what we've committed to spend is £23,000 year to date. You see a little deficit sit there, and we can break this down even further. Our income, you'll see the biggest thing on here is, oh sorry, I've missed a slide, that's awful. On there it is, our income, you'll see the biggest thing that comes out is gifts and giving. Like actually, I'm so sorry. We're looking at here. Oh, I've got a laser pointer. The biggest thing that you'll see comes out here is the common fund. We are part of the Church of England. We love being part of the Church of England. I'm a priest in the Church of England. We are a Church of England church. We are something called a Bishop's Missions Order. The Church of England set us up deliberately and purposefully that we can go out and be a blessing to our city. And so our biggest thing that comes out, you'll see, is our common fund. We love being a part of Church of England, and what we get to do is we get to give back. What you'll see on the other side is our expenditure and our income. Predominantly comes from gifts, right? Biggest thing in is gifts, biggest thing out is our gift back to the Church of England. But you'll also see on this expenditure, there's no staff expenditure. So yes, we contribute £8,000, which is by far the biggest chunk. But what you'll see on here is that my salary and Rin's salary is not present. Why? Because the Church of England pays for me. You guys don't pay for me. The Church of England pays for me. We love being part of the Church of England. It pays for my housing. It pays for my stipend. It pays for my pension. You'll see that on there. Rin, we managed to get a government grant for Rin because of my ADHD. And big up ADHD people. And so we need some more neurodiverse people on the staff team, people, so we can get some more people involved. And so for free. And so if you are neurodiverse, please, no, I'm joking. And so you'll see here that our biggest output is our common fund, but there's no staffing costs. Staffing costs are neutral. Our second biggest thing is our building, which is quite cool because building hire almost covers does cover our building costs. It won't entirely this year because there's some small things that we need to do around the building. Like we've got to get an electrical survey, which is going to cost us probably somewhere between £750 and £1,500. Again, that's not on here, but we need to do that in the very near future. You look around the building, you see paint falling off. You'll see, like the floor. Dan and I, Dan's a saint. Dan literally sanded these floors and we repainted again. We need to do that again. There's some small things, like some electrical things. You'll see like electrical, I shouldn't say this on the microphone, electrical things that are hanging on by gaffer tape. And, like there is stuff happening around our building that we need to sort out, basically. And so you'll see that our building, at the moment, it looks like it covers, but it won't in its entirety. The third thing is unlimited coffee. In terms of our income, you'll see that that almost covers itself, but again, it won't. We've got to have a big service done on the trailer. We've got some significant expenditure that's coming up for that. And then you'll see like our kind of next sort of stuff on here. Hangouts and events. That's our weekend away. That's midweek hangouts. That's events that we put on for things like Easter and Christmas. And then operational costs. And then our midweek ministry. So this is things like our Toasty Tuesday in here, where we have a load of the college students in the building. So if you look at these two, they seem like they kind of match. But if we go back to our income and expenditure, our total expenditure is about £23,000, and our income is about 21 to date. Again, there is some fluctuation in that, and we're expecting another couple of grand. So we're looking at probably a £3,000 to £4,000 deficit this year. And so if we hold these in, what is exciting about where we're at as a church at the moment is the growth. It's really exciting. Can you just show of hands who was here before January 2023? Nobody. We've grown massively. We've almost 3x'd. Actually, what we found here is that all the members turned up every Sunday, and so we were at 12 members. But in our database of members, we've got about 55. So we've 4x'd, nearly 5x'd our community over the last 2 years, which is really exciting. We're growing younger. I love that we've got a room full of little people next door. I love that we've got students that are looking after. I love the fact that on a Tuesday and a Thursday, we've got students out in the coffee trailer, serving young people. I love that we are growing younger. And I love that we are growing. We've done an amazing job of growing the community. You guys have been inviting friends. You guys have been shouting about us. You've been posting stuff online. This is not a staff team effort. This is a community effort. I want to say thank you for that. But if we go back to the previous slide of our giving, you'll see that although we've grown by 3x or 4x, depending on how you look at it, our anticipated giving has dropped to a third of what it was when we were at our littlest. And so we face a kind of a space where we are struggling. Looking at our giving for next year, over the last 6 months, we've lost 3 or 4 significant givers, which means that our giving has dropped by half. It's gone from about £1,200 a month, it's going to go to £600 a month. And so really what I'm asking in this moment is that we can try and match the difference. I wonder whether over the next couple of weeks we can match the difference in our monthly giving. We have got some big ticket items coming up that we're going to spend some money on. Thankfully, we've got a little bit of reserve, but we can't negatively eat into our reserve time and time and time again. If we do that, we've got about 5 years left in the making, and actually bills are going up. Bills went up 25% this year for us. We are significantly in a deficit. I say all this knowing the climate what I'm saying it in. I know that I'm saying it where people are stretched for cash. I know that I'm saying it where you guys might live like us and you might think I can only afford to put a couple of quid of diesel in the car till we get to payday. You're looking at it thinking I can't do the things that I would already like to do with my kids and with my family and with my life because I'm struggling. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I know the environment that I'm saying this in, but I want to encourage you to give. Of course I do. I want you to give for you, and I want you to give for us. I want you to give because I want you to say to the Lord, I trust you more than anything else. But I also want you to give because you're part of this family and you see this deficit and you think, I can support this. And so you might be a student and you might think, I can only give 10 quid a month. I only give 10 quid a month. But let's go back to the graphs. 10 quid a month. What could 10 quid a month cover? Well, 10 quid a month could cover our social media platforms and apps and bills that we use on a monthly basis. We've got a new app that costs 10 quid a month. If you look at the last 6 reels that we put out, we've had about 8,000 views. 8,000 people have watched the stuff we put out. I would argue that's worth 10 quid a month, right? You might think, okay, I could stretch to putting 120 quid into the kitty every month. Well, that would cover our midweek ministries. You think, I can point to times where this place was full of 30 rugby lads in the middle playing ping pong and chatting and being in this space. You can think of all the students. Last year, when we were running late hangouts, which we're going to run again this year, we met 190 students over 2 nights, just simply opening our doors and allowing them to flood into this space. You might think, okay, well, I can maybe give £200 a month. £200 would cover our unlimited coffee bill. This year alone, we've met 719 students with the coffee trailer. 719 conversations that we've had. And that's not the kids that have stood around as we've been having the conversations with people. Ponder that a moment. 719 students in Berry Meadows Park. You might think, oh, well, maybe I could stretch to £150 a month. And that could, you think, it's worth putting the heating and lighting on and contributing to some of our building costs coming up. Think about the 10,000 to 12,000 young people we've encountered over the last 12 to 14 months. Through schools, through work in big cathedral service, through the trailer, through late night hangouts, through students, through events. And so I'd like you to consider giving. And I know that money is awkward, and that we all find money awkward. And so what I'd love to do, Dan, would you come up? And I'd love us to worship now. And we've got 12 minutes left before we come into land. I'd love us to worship now. But I'd also love for you just to pray about this. There are 3 really good, easy ways to give. First way is if you'd like to set up a standing order, you can do that on our website, www.unlimitedunltd.church/give. And you can do it on the website. By doing that, you can set up a direct debit, and it will also include gift aid, which means that for every 25p, if you're a taxpayer, you give, we get 25% back from the government. How beautiful is that? An extra 25% for doing nothing. So that's one way you can give. Second way is if you have to fill in this form and say, you know what, I'd like to give X amount a month, and then go home and set up a direct debit. If you do that, the gift aid is a bit more complicated because we've got to go and work it out. But we don't get charged a fee for using an online platform, so that's beautiful. Or thirdly, if you'd like to give a one-off donation, you can do that online on the website, through one of these forms, and backs it through later. Or you can do it on the terminal. And if you want to give under £30, can I ask that you do it on the terminal, because that is the most financially beneficial way for us when it comes to fees and everything else. Because we only get charged 1% with that, whereas everything else we get charged 1%, 1.4%, and a fee, and a fee, and a fee. And so with sum up, we only get a 1% fee. And so could I ask in this moment you pray? If you are a member of a local church, if this is your first time in this place, can I ask that you consider giving to where you don't go to church, or if you're not a Christian, to think, hey, there might be a charity that I might want to give to. And so can I just invite you, what I'd love to do, because it is awkward, right? I know that giving is awkward, and I'd love everybody to have some movement in this space. I'm going to put a tub of sweets here and the sum up machine here. And I'd love us to, and I'm going to put a crate on where my laptop is. And I'd love movement from everybody to enable people who are giving and want to give in secret to not feel awkward about getting out of their seats. So we're going to sing and we're going to worship, but I would love it if you could fill in the form. And you might just want to say, hey Matt, you're doing a great job, I'm broke, thanks but no thanks. Or you might want to say, hey, you know what, I need to talk to my spouse, but I could consider giving this. Or you might want to say, hey, you know what, Matt, yeah, you know what, actually I can today commit to giving X amount. But could you just, and then if you just put on there, like, I'm going to do it online, I'm going to do it via the website, or I'm going to do it via the terminal, that would be wonderful. I should also say, sorry, I'm trying to wrap up and I'm not wrapping up. I should also say that I know who gives, but I don't know the amounts. I don't choose to know how much people give. I think it's really important that you guys get thanked by the vicar when you give. I think that's really important. We want to honour you. But I won't be writing to you and say, dear Jimmy, thank you so much for giving £18.69. Yeah, like that's not our deal. The treasurer just knows how much people give. And so if you already give, thank you. And can I ask you just now just to consider if you'd like to give? And can I ask everyone to fill in one of these? And then there's going to be a crate here. And then while we're worshipping, once you're done with the form, put it in the crate, grab a sweet. If you want to give by the terminal will be here. I'll put it on the side so that no one can see what you're putting in. But can everybody move? And can everyone come up and put something in the box? And then we're going to worship together to close. Is that okay? If you have any questions at all, please come and find me, and we can go from there. But let's pray and ponder.